Hey everybody, Andy here. Welcome to Thursday Live Office Hours, or maybe you're watching this on a Tuesday or one of the other 5 days of the week. I don't really care when, as long as I know you're here or you're watching. Great to have you, helping you build a career you love. If you are here with me live, get in the chat, say hi, put some question marks in front of your questions, because after I do this teaching portion on one absolute killer of a mistake I think a lot of people are making in their job search, I'm going to take your questions. So, Patty B, great to see you. Oh, wait, I can hear my sound is on. Let me get that off. Great to have you. Patty, Dave, Joseph, Adam, Deb, Doug, Atunga, Donna, Sam, Stacy, Kurt, Taya, and everybody else. Welcome aboard. Love these shows. So, what's today all about? Well, I've been seeing a common problem, and you know, when I see it with one or two people, I don't think it's a huge deal. Sometimes it's very specific, but I'm seeing this in my one-on-one coaching sessions. I'm seeing it a lot in the resume reviews that I'm doing lately. I'm seeing it in the questions people ask me in the milewalk Academy system, and I can see this as a problem, and this problem is hurting you when you are sending your resume to somebody who's looking at it, and even when you're introducing yourself very quickly, or when you're telling your stories in an interview. It's an absolute crusher, and it certainly doesn't help when you are actually targeting your search proactively, and that is you are not narrowing down specifically what your bread and butter skill is. What is it that you want somebody to hire you for? And I'm seeing it's very prevalent with senior folks, whether senior in level or senior in tenure, because you've accumulated a lot of skills, but you're making it very, very difficult for somebody to ascertain what is it that you do. I'm spending this past week, and I do about 10 one-to-one coaching sessions each week. That's about, a normal schedule load for me, about 2.5 hours a day of coaching sessions. And so let's just say over 20 people, 75% of them in the last couple of weeks had this issue. And where I'm spending 30 minutes trying to figure out what is it that you do. And I'm your coach who loves you, so I'm willing to spend that kind of time. And that's all fine and good when you're on the comfort of your own coach's Zoom couch. But when you get into an interview, it ain't going to work. And that's assuming you can even get the interview in the first place. So I wanted to bring it to your attention, and I want to make sure that we talk about it and how it's hurting you and how I would fix it. So what I'm seeing is that there's a lack of clarity on who you are, and what this does with that lack of clarity, and even the more specific you can get, when you are clear on what it is that you do and your greatest offering, or why that employer would be attracted to you, the more specific you can get, the more that reduces the candidate pool that is viable alternatives to you, right? Your competition, if we want to call it that, and you're not really telling the employer what it is that they're hiring you for. So I want to talk through some of these things. We've got this little saying in marketing. It's true for any of you marketers out there. Raise your hand and maybe echo this in the chat. But if you build your product, of which you are all a product, if your product is for everyone, if you think your product is for everyone, it's for no one, okay? That's the saying. If you're making your product for everybody, you're making your product for nobody. And we look at it a different way. One of the first principles of marketing is that it is much, much better to find your smallest viable audience to target, because they will be the most in need, the most attentive, the most passionate, and the people that you can help the most. And the same works for you when you're targeting employers. And I want to talk about me for a couple minutes, and then I want to make some examples that I think will apply to you. But I want to do this for illustrative purposes to give us some momentum as we get into the steps that I want to cover today. So when you look at me, and I don't know how many people are here right now, well over 100 and probably climbing, because we're just getting into this. And I know there are a lot of different people from a lot of different walks of life. And the principles and the things that I teach as a career and leadership coach will help many people all over the world. That's true. And I think most people out there can learn from what I'm teaching. But my true paying customer base usually has a certain profile, and most of what I do will likely appeal to them, because for every 100 of you that are out here, 3 of you are in a paid program kind of thing, just to give you an idea of how small my buying audience actually is, the people that actually pay to hire me. And you think about what I offer based on my experience, I generally appeal to white collar people, right? They usually, not always, but usually earn over 6 figures. Not always, but usually. They have obviously some kind of ambition. They're usually over 30 years old. Most of them are over 40 years old and in their 50s or 60s. Not all, but most. And they also have usually a propensity to want to continue their education and develop their career. That's truly who ultimately buys my services most of the time. And then I would say I would go on a little bit further in that each layer that I add, where I describe myself to them, narrows it even further in a good way. Meaning, while there are a lot of other career coaches out there that you could watch, listen to, pay for their services or their coaching or services or their products, what happens is I'm a career coach, right? That's where I start, except there's a whole bunch, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of career coaches out there, right? You could pick anybody. But I also am a leadership coach. Okay, so that reduces the number of people, right? Sometimes there's resume writers, sometimes there's interview coaches. That's what they do. But I teach on multiple things, especially related to your career. I have over 30 years of experience, so that reduces your pool of career coaches even further if you want somebody who has that experience. I come with a practitioner's background, so for nearly 20 years, I held corporate jobs, right? I built units for 16 plus 17, 18 years. I was an executive recruiter, so I have an insider's knowledge. There's less people who have that. I'm a multiple 3-time published author, a blogger, speaker, so on and so forth. And every layer of that I add narrows down the number of available coaches to you if those things are important to you. That's the person I'm looking for. That's the person that I'm trying to appeal most to in hopes that they will enroll in my services so I can teach them at the deepest level. So every layer that I add narrows the number of people like me. And I would argue that anybody, could you find somebody else that looks like me? Probably not. But here's the kicker. Even if you could, they would have to be willing to take the time and show up every week to share their knowledge with you. Every week, every day is what I do, right? So think about that. Now, if you flip this over and you think about it from an employer's perspective, and I kind of chuckle because I think about the number of times I've had this discussion with the employers who are trying to hire you, and they would say, Andy, hey, we need you to do a search for us, you and your team. We'd like a chief marketing officer. And then I would chuckle and say, okay, I'll call you this afternoon with a bunch, because I could find a whole bunch of those. They'd say, well, hang on a second. We really would like somebody who understands software as a services companies and knows how to, and whose real niche specialty is in digital marketing. Okay. All right, there's fewer of those people. Oh, who also knows how to establish partnerships and can do all 8 lines of marketing, and also knows the healthcare space as it relates to, and has some experience with customer related systems, and that's our specialty, and so on. And every time they would add a layer, what would happen? It would make the searcher's job, the recruiter's job, the employer's job harder to find that person. And maybe there's 5 people in the world who actually have those skills. I have to find them first and then convince them to leave what they're doing to come and work with you, right? I want you to be that person that proactively targets your smallest viable audience with your narrow set of skills that you built layer upon layer that make you unique before you even have to answer the question in an interview, what makes you unique? And what I want you to think about this another way. Show of hands in the chat. I would love to see this. I want to scroll down and see this. How many of you, this just to drive the point home, how many of you found me because you had a job search related problem? Maybe you went to YouTube. Maybe you saw something on LinkedIn. Maybe you caught one of my podcasts. Just head in the chat and just give me an I, or say, hey, I found you live office hours for something else. So how many of you discovered me because of that? I know we're on a delay, but let me tell you where I'm going with that. If I would have set out to the world predominantly initially, I'm a career and leadership coach. I could help you with productivity. I could help you with goal setting. I could help you with anything you need to run big business units, convince boards of directors, write business cases, speak, communicate, write, and so on. And I also coach on job searching. Right? How many of you would have found me if that's what I would have done? And not to be funny, and I don't want you to panic with what I'm about to say, but all of you that are here that said, I did, that's me, hands up. I see the hands up. I say, hey, Cisco, Deb, Faith, MK, Riz, Laura, Keith, Mr. 97, dude, come on, Steve, Deanna, and so on and so forth, and everybody who's here. You pay attention to me. If you are here in the chat, I'm assuming you still, for my weakest skill. Okay, my weakest skill. How scary is that? All right, you found me for something that I know this much of, and you're not tapping into me yet, maybe, for something I know this much of. Why? Because I didn't approach it this way. It's not what are the skills I offer. You don't even have a smidgen or a glimpse of the skills I have. It isn't, and I want you to think about this for you. It's not what are the skills I have to offer, but what is my greatest and most visible skill set? Okay? What is it that I want to present to the world? Here we go, 3 right in a row. It's not what I can do. It's what I'm selling today. Okay? I get that you can do a lot of things, all right? But the employer needs you to do one thing. And I'm talking about now, assuming you are the person who would like to find your next job quickly. I understand there are many different sets of circumstances, but go with me for teaching and illustrative purposes. It's not what you can do. It's what you're selling. All right? And I got news for you. You're all selling you. You're all marketing you. How do you want to be known, discovered, hired, and so on, and make your life super easy as it relates to helping the other person understand who you are and what you offer? It makes it faster for you to get interviews, and your stories, you will fly through the interviews. What are you selling today? Okay? So I decided that you, as a person out there, if I was going to help individuals, my focus was on you. I wanted to help people with their job search issues first, because that is an acute pain and you are miserable when you don't have that. If you don't have a job you love, or you don't have a job, you are generally bummed out, most people. I can help you. Let's fix that first. Then let's build some trust in a relationship, and you can see what else I offer, even though what I offer is even better. And that's going to come second. Okay? So can I get a show of hands? Who's following me here? You understand what I mean? Who struggles with the temptation to want to litter their resume with a bunch of stuff? Right? I get that. It's hard. You want them to know you're versatile. You want them to know that. But what you're doing is you're diluting the ultimate reason why they would want to hire you. And for many of you, you're confusing the hell out of me when I look at your resume. And I'm really versatile, and I'm really experienced, and and as a recruiter, I've seen zillions of resumes. I can digest it, but if I can't tell what you do, that's a real problem. Okay, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about a few things here. All right. So, who caught my show on Tuesday? The recording where I said how to find your job faster in 2022. And it was really about finding it faster and easier. And I talked about stripping it down. I talked about less is more. There were certain things I wanted you to focus on. And I'm gonna carry forward today a little bit from what I said Tuesday. And if you didn't catch it, maybe Stacy can drop this in the chat, the video from Tuesday about how to find your job faster in 2022. And I talked about, can you, in these 4 areas, in 1 second, can you be specific about what it is that you do? Can I immediately know if I look at your resume? Okay? Or in a sentence. If you're introducing yourself, and I'll go sentences, okay? You don't even have to try to jam it all into one. But can you explicitly say what you're about? When you search, can you narrow down what you're doing so that it's easier for you to find the intersection of who needs you and what you have, the skill you're selling today, and in a story to make your stories so colorful with that context of your bread and butter that you're making your life easier. This is what you're hurting. Because when I say in my coaching sessions, who's out there who's had a coaching session with me, and I say, tell me what you do. And then you start going on and go, oh, stop. You only get one side. What do you do? Right? It starts there. If you can't distill down what you do into 1 second and 1 sentence, that issue is going to permeate when you get into this side over here. All right, so I'm going to help you with what I would do and how I would look at it and the questions I would ask myself to test yourself to make sure you can do these things. All right, and I highly recommend that you watch that video that I just released on Tuesday, How to Find Your Job Faster in 2022, because this is a great extension of that. I told you the areas to focus on. All right, let's go through the 4. In 1 second, I'm talking about the resume, meaning I'm glancing at the resume and I'm looking at it. In 1 second, we're talking about the resume. Is your resume, just look at your resume, you do it now or you do it later. Is it too vague? All right. Are there too many different areas? Would they know my bread and butter? I did a coaching session with a woman who has a fantastic background. And she and I were going back and forth. This was last week or maybe a few days ago. Guys, so many of these. But she ultimately, as I was telling her what I see, she was discovering the issue. I said, is this what you do? She says, well, it is, but that's not actually the job I want. So not only did she have an articulation issue, but it was difficult for her to articulate, but the inference, the implication she was making by the content in her resume and the inference I would make as a reviewer, recruiter, or hiring official were not in sync. And she wanted a different type of role than what was advertised. So this is really, really important. Can you show what your bread and butter skill is? And I want to talk about this because if you are a project manager, for example, if you talk about project management, I'm not talking about putting the word project management umpteen times into your resume. I'm talking about, are you actually showing the types of projects that you manage? Or are you confusing me with the other styles of effort that you do? So are you a project manager? And do I see things related to marketing or selling or other things that make me wonder, well, are you actually a project manager or do you do these other things? Versus I'm a project manager that implements information technology systems that help sales teams, Salesforce automation, or customer relationship management, or something of that ilk, right? That's what I'm talking about when I say on your resume, do you have a consistent theme that runs through? You would be amazed at how much time I spend trying to get people to get their thoughts, their resume, and their interviewing stories in sync. This makes it very difficult when you get into the interviews because they have to spend a lot of time asking you questions to ascertain what it is that you actually do. If you can tell me in 1 second So when you say I'm a senior business professional, I don't know what that is. When you say you're a senior executive, I don't know what that is. When you say you're a business and technology consultant, I don't know what that is. I know what that is, but I don't know what that really is. All right, and if it takes you 5 sentences to explain it to me, that's very difficult. So that's what I'm talking about is does your bread and butter skill come through? Show of hands. How many people, if you looked at your resume right now, you should know what, oh, Stacy, that's cute, bread and butter. I bet Stacy made sure she had those emojis ready in the chat for anybody who's got this turned on with the live chat. With the bread and butter, check yourself, okay? That's the first thing. Second thing is, this is a 3-parter. So when I say in a sentence, I could be talking about your headline, your elevator pitch, your career profile, or your introduction to somebody in an interview, in an informational interview, something like that. And so, do I know what your specialty is? And can you make it narrow for me, right? I'm a career coach. When people listen to me, I make them rich because they find the job they love. Kind of thing, right? White-collar professionals, when they listen to me. Generally, when 6-figure white-collar professionals listen to me. Kind of thing. For whom do you do it? Companies, people, groups, markets, industries, right? What kind of processes? Is it customer relationship management, IT-specific stuff? Business re-engineering for, right? Industrial engineering type processes or something of that nature. What have you built? How long you been doing it? What locations? Domestic, national, central, regional kind of thing. Okay, this is really, really important. Most of you really struggle with this. So I want you to think about, is this down? Is this down? Is this down tight? Now I talked about how to put a 1-sentence description together, how to describe yourself in 1 sentence. But I'm talking about next level stuff. I gave you that to give you a centerpiece and a focal point and a way to intro yourself. But I want you to improve on what I shared with you before. I've showed you how to write a career profile in the resume videos. You can look these up. You can look these up on YouTube. But I want you to be really specific. I want to talk about an example here. When I'm talking about an intro, this is the problem I see. So I talk to somebody in coaching sessions. I say, what do you do? They say, I'm a programmer. No, you're not. There's a million programmers, a zillion programmers. I solve complex problems. No, you don't. Meaning you might, but so too does everybody else. You have not narrowed the employer's candidate pool and you've not told them anything special about yourself. Versus, I code custom solutions in Java for customer relationship management systems in the healthcare space that focus on that. Every time you add a layer, you are reducing the number of possibilities that an employer can choose over you. You won't get asked the question, what makes you unique in an interview? If you got the 7 things I need, you are unique, because that's really hard to find, that pink unicorn, so to speak. That's what I'm talking about. That's a sentence, right? That's a career profile. That's an introduction, right? I could say, I build units that help whatever, streamline this as it relates to. As you can see from my resume, I've spent the last 20 years doing that. That's what I'm talking. That's how you introduce yourself. Okay? This is, if you want to think in terms of tell me about yourself, this is the place it starts. This is, here's the outer layer of the onion, here's the next layer, here's the next layer, here's the next layer, and here's the core. Okay, this is what makes you unique. This is what gets you the job faster. Okay? All right, let's talk about your problems that I see, what I want you to avoid. Don't be too vague. Okay? You are not I do not help people sell their products. That's not what anybody does that wants to be known or unique, right? Or you don't want, I sell, market, develop products, manage them, grow staff, this. What do you do? I don't know what that is, right? What am I hiring you for? You got to think about them. Okay, so you are doing a couple of things. In my business, I listen to you every week. You tell me what your problems are. What do? I make videos and then I push them out. And then I say, the person who needs this answered, solved, fixed, or whatever, hopefully will find it. Now, that's not a good tactic for you when you're job searching. However, once you find me, what do I have to do? Build a relationship with you. How do I do that? I have to triangulate what's interesting to you. You tell me with your actions whether you're interested in the stuff that I share. I look at email open rates. I look at YouTube views. I look at other things that just are signals to me. Then that helps me understand, is this the right kind of person that I need to offer my services to? Okay, with you, what you want to do is you're looking for, okay, how do I make myself super narrow? And then I'm going to be more proactive than Andy. I'm going to be more proactive than Andy. Narrow their odds. I'm going to target my search with my smallest viable audience. What's my smallest viable audience? Well, if you're a coder or a code jockey or a programmer, the words we love to call them, or develop, whatever, that codes in healthcare systems, custom solutions, customer experience stuff, and so on, you're going after healthcare companies and you're going after the director of IT, the VP of IT, and the CIO, or whatever, manager of IT. And there's only about a bajillion of them from here to the corner. Okay, so you have enough. Don't think in terms of limits. There are enough people out there that need exactly what you offer. Coach Andy promises. I make a promise. No one wants to promise stuff these days. I guarantee it. Okay, there's plenty of people like that you can find. You go find them, you slide your cover letter and resume in front of them, and they're going to be squealing with glee because they've been looking for you for years. That's if you take the time to triangulate them and you go down to the smallest target audience. Believe me, you would have a hard time convincing me that no matter anything that you do, that there's not enough people that you could target or enough companies that you could target or enough options wherever you live or however you work or whatever you do. This works. It does. If I only wanted to teach men between 60 and 70 years old that live in California, I could make a fortune doing that. And every dude who was looking for a job that was in their 60s would know my name. Okay? That's what I'm talking about. You got to be proactive and do this. Okay? And you will likely get luckier because you know what a recruiter's doing? A recruiter's going into LinkedIn with their absolute dream combination of parameters and putting them into some search field and saying IT, developer, healthcare, this and that, and you're the only name that's going to come up. Look at this card. Burn it in your brain. Okay, what's next? Okay. Do you guys know I wrote a whole book on interviewing? Okay. I'm going to give you the most, pound for pound, best tip ever on storytelling right now. This card. You do this. You don't have to watch any of my other interview videos. You don't have to take any interview courses. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to go watch any other coaches. If you just do what I'm going to show you on this card, pound for pound, this is the best interview tip you will ever get. But first, I want to take a sip of this coffee. It's kind of like right after the commercial. Okay. You know how I tell you there's basically 3 formats to interview questions? There's the behavioral interview questions. Tell me about a time when. Well, tell me about a challenge you overcome. Blah, 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 blah. And then there's project-specific questions. Andy, that's a great looking project right there. Can you walk me through how you did that? And you just tell them how you did something you did. And then there's those situational questions where it's like, hey, we got this project and we want you to build this thing. Could you tell us how you would do that? Those kind of three things. All right, forget all that for a second. Those are basically the formats. Forget all the techniques you heard. When you do the first three things that I just said, here's all you need to worry about when you go into an interview. There's three things you got to remember. Three. It's so simple. Take a picture of the card. When you're going to tell a story, you're going to be telling a lot of stories that are very specific. Context is king and queen and checkmate. Because once they understand why you did what you did, and you tell them how you did what you did, with all the parameters racked together, you're going to get hired. And here's what I mean exactly. Here's what a lot of you do. Hey, Susie, I see you built this thing over here and you saved a bunch of money for your company. It looks like a great bullet. Yeah, because my coach Andy told me how to write resume bullets. Great. Can you tell me how you did that? And here's what a lot of you want to do. Okay, the first thing is I started to do this and I did step 1. And then I did step 2. And then I did step 3. And now the person here is just trying to listen, has no idea where you are in your story. You could be rambling, you might not be rambling. When instead what I'd rather you say is, this only takes 20 seconds, is give them context. Why was I even doing that in the first place? Okay, why was I doing that in the first place? That project, I'm so glad you asked. You know, actually, what was happening was we had this customer experience system. It was used for support, and people would call us, and the customer reps couldn't find what they needed, and it was taking too long to answer the questions, and people were on hold too long. So we were losing a large 10% of our customers every month. It was costing us $1 million a month. I don't know how long it took me to say that. Okay, whoa. Sounds like a big problem. Right, so they had to call me in to evaluate what the issue was and build them a system and a process that fixed that. Okay, now they know you're a badass, okay? Oh, that's great. So, because it was an IT project, but we had to engineer some of the processes, I did the 7 things you would do for any large-scale IT project. I got with the stakeholders. I asked them, we discovered what the issues were. Once I had that, we built the requirements, then we designed it, then we architected it, then we built it, then we tested it, and then we put it into place. So the first thing that I did was, and then you walk them through your steps. Why? Because you came with a playbook. Every single thing you've ever done in your life can be reverse engineered into a methodology, a framework, a playbook, a system, a step-by-step. And employers love step-by-step. Why? You come with the outline, you come with the playbook. They pay more for systems as opposed to point solutions. It sounds like you had a system. You walk them through your system. They know you're organized. They know where you are in the story. Then what? You're done with that, and then guess what happened? 6 months later, we turned on the new system, and all of a sudden, month over month, we started retaining our customers back to where it leveled off after 6 months, and we were only losing 2% of our customers, which is natural attrition because. So I ended up getting back 900,000, 800,000 of the whatever. The outcome, right? And the bennies. This is it. Do not forget the context. This is what gives you heft. It gives you the gravitas. This is what gets them excited that what is about to follow really mattered. Because a lot of people do a lot of stuff that doesn't mean anything, that doesn't really change the world, that doesn't really change and benefit their companies, their customers, or whatever. So all you need to do, what was the context? Why did it matter? Tell me the system that you went through, and then tell me what happened. That's it. This is it. It's the simplest thing to ever remember. Now, let me throw one little bonus tip in here on the interviewing part. The best way to prepare for that is they're going to ask me about these bullets because they're so awesome. But I'm going to be ready for the behavioral interviewing questions that are inside the project-specific question because that's what the best damn interviewers do. Why do they do that? Here's what a bad interviewer does. Hey, Susie, tell me about a challenge you overcame. then Susie is left racking her brain, fishing around for some challenge that means something in their world. And the odds of you choosing the right one are almost nil. But the best interviewer says, Susie, walk me through that process right there. What did you do? And then as you're going through it, when you're at about step 2 or step 3, the interviewer will interrupt you and say, what was the biggest challenge you faced when you were corralling the stakeholders? Bang. Behavioral interview inside the context of something that matters to me, and you know it's of interest to me because I asked you to explain it to me. That's the best interviewer does that, right? So what do you prepare? You prepare all those silly behavioral interview questions inside your project-specific responses. You will never be surprised. You will never be thrown off guard, okay? But why would you want to prep this way? Because you talked about and made what was most important, most visible. And that's the thing I care most about. And that's why I want to talk about that resume bullet and not ask you questions all over the place like, tell me how you organize stuff and tell me how you overcome challenges and tell me about a problem you solve. Because I don't care about that. I want to talk about the specific problems that I know matter to me as an interviewer. Okay? So just to recap, I want you to just go through these things. Ask yourself, is my resume, does it pass the 1-second test? Can I quickly articulate my bread and butter? Seconds, people, seconds. 1 second to seconds. Oh, sorry. Can I target my search down to the most viable? And can I get my stories in kind of that 3-pronged approach? Now, that was a lot on what I want you to think about and how I want you to look at it. Now, if you're interested, very quickly, if you want to know exactly what this looks like in real life, the last 2 coaching sessions I did, the group coaching sessions I did with my job search boot campers, so the people in my job search coaching program, my premium program, we spent hours going through resumes, and I would pull them up on the screen and I would tell them, here's what I see, here's what's going to happen, here's the issues you're going to face, kind of questions you're going to get in the interview, here's the problems you're going to have, here's what you need to be ready for, here's what you need to change. There are, I don't know, a few dozen examples of people's resumes that we walk through. That's if you're interested in that. Stacy can drop it in the chat, how to get access to that program. That's if you want more on this. But if you got value out of this video, smash the like button. Please make sure you're subscribed. And if you're here with me live, I'm going to the chat. And if you're watching this on the recording, I'll see you next week. But I loved sharing that with you guys. Really do. Lots of luck with it. Get the search tight. Get the messaging tight. Go get them.